Hello everyone, I hope I find you all very well. I've decided to finally get around to reviewing this magnificent Tyrannosaurus Rex from PNSO. As you might be aware, I've had this figure for a few weeks, and in those few weeks I've not been able to take my eyes off it. It's been permanent presence on my bedside cabinet. It's just something that looks absolutely magnificent. And of course I got this figure from Everything Dinosaur. I missed out on it the first time round because this figure is a very high premium quality figure. It's at a slightly higher price point, and when it was first released earlier this year I'd only just started working again and couldn't afford it. I'm so glad I've got it now. Also, I just want to say a quick thank you to my good friend Tiana, who left this mocky squishy in a blind bag on my desk as a birthday present at work, and this little Pteranodon type pterosaur type thing came out of it, and I just loved it a bit. So thank you, Tiana. I'm just going to pop them off to one side for now and have a look at Wilson here. One thing about this figure is I'm a bit surprised it's not called Aaron after the baby Tyrannosaurus Rex that they released last year, considering what a massive update this figure is compared to their original Wilson. They could quite easily have called it Aaron or something else altogether, but there's neither rhyme nor reason to how PNSO named their figure, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. As you can see, I've got it posed on the stand today. It is very good that PNSO include these with the bipedal theropod figures, because although this figure stands perfectly well on its own, as I shall demonstrate now, in heat like what we'll have today, it does tend to distort a little, as any PVC figure will, and tip over. So it has had a couple of minor tumbles, but nothing that has scuffed or grazed it at all. It's an incredibly robust and strong figure. It really is very high quality. So as you can see, if I turn to face the camera here, you really would not want to come face to face with T-Rex. It's a magnificent looking figure. You can see that binocular vision perfectly captured here in this fantastic sculpt. It really does blow me away, the whole pose of this figure. It's slightly unusual compared to most T-Rex figures I've seen with this posture, sort of leaning forward slightly more. It's definitely a bit more bird-like to me, and also a bit more dynamic. I mean, the original Wilson, I never got the figure because it looked clumsy and awkward to me. I'm a little bit concerned about that with a certain other upcoming T-Rex figure, but we shall see. And also, they've taken into account the research when they've looked at the trackways of Tyrannosaurids. As you can see, the feet are almost perfectly aligned here, a little like a cat, a modern cat. The feet seemed to plant perfectly in line with each other. So that's a nice touch as well. It really is a very well thought out and very well engineered figure. Now, I know when the original promotional images came out and people saw it with the mouth closed, there was a little bit of hilarity went on, because it does look a little bit goofy like this. As you can see, you see what if the focus wasn't misbehaving itself so badly. I'll turn it around so the sunlight catches that, might be easier. It still looks absolutely fantastic even with the mouth closed. It looks a whole lot better in hand than it ever did on any promotional images, which is quite an achievement. And it really is a fantastic quality figure. When you look at the head like that, actually the closest thing it reminds me of when it comes to other dinosaur toy figures is actually the Papo Rex, which, as you can see, has a similar sort of pointy profile to the face. Of course, it's nowhere near as scientifically up to date, but as you can see, they're very much the same species. It's not without its merits, that figure. It's an excellent figure. It'll always be one of my favourites. But this figure is by far and away my favourite Tyrannosaurus Rex figure ever, by a very, very long way. I just want to take a closer look at this head with you. I mean, the eye, you can see how tiny the eye is compared to my fingers here, and yet it is so perfectly painted. If I get it a little bit closer to the camera here, you can see the different colours in that eye. There's a redness, and then the yellow, and then that bright pupil in there, and it looks so lifelike and convincing. It's absolutely incredible. And all the texturing on the face too. They've used all the latest research on Tyrannosaurus Rex integument in making this figure. So you've got these big tabulate scales on the snout depicted, and then the smaller ones antorbitally. And what I'm really, really happy about with this figure is they've actually read the research, and they've created this sort of ram's horn type texture in front of and behind the eye. And that's not something I've seen on another Tyrannosaurus figure before. It's something I've seen on art, it's something I've drawn myself. But it's not something I've seen on a Tyrannosaurus figure, and I'm very happy to see that on this. Absolutely fantastic. You can see there's an ear there as well. And the nostrils are sculpted more reptilian than the dog-like look you sometimes see on figures. Looking at the teeth, as you can see, there's different layers of paint on the teeth here as well. It's a very conservative paint scheme compared to the original Wilson. I would have quite liked to see this one done in the colours of the original Wilson, but it is nonetheless a realistic and very well applied colour. As you can see, those big scales got a lighter wash over, which really makes them pop and stand out. The amount of detail on this thing is absolutely extraordinary. The horn above the eye there as well, and also the jugal horn. If I open the mouth a little, and if I can turn it so that you can see inside, there are multiple different colours on the insides of the jaws, and they're picked out in a really glossy type of paint, and it gives a great impression of moisture and heat, and you can almost smell the breath on this thing. It's absolutely extraordinary. Of course, there's no shrink wrapping going on here either. One of the other things I really love about this figure is the fact that at the back of the skull, I mean, there's a seam line there because of the way the head's assembled. It doesn't really detract from the figure at all. Most Tyrannosaurus figures, you'll see that the boxy back of the skull is sticking out here, and it would be enclosed in muscle as this is. And having looked at a cast of Stan several times in my life, because there's one in our local museum, I'm very fortunate to have that, I've always wondered how T-Rex would look with the neck restored as thick as it should have been in real life, and here is your answer. PNSO have taken that into account. So here we have a T-Rex which is correctly muscled, and you see it's got an incredibly thick and powerful neck, but again there's no overly bulging muscles or anything like that. In these small, very powerful arms, they are positioned correctly underneath, and they're quite close together here as they would be in real life. The texturing is very fine. I know at this scale you definitely wouldn't be able to make out individual scales. In fact, these scales are probably actually life-size to what T-Rexes actually were. This is something I'm not concerned with. This is something that I tend to find that the toys are a representation of what the animal was. There's something that appeals to the imagination. When they're this well done, it really is not a matter of concern. And also the fact that they've gone for putting slightly heavier textures on the underside of the neck, the chest. Because of course T-Rex in its environment was up against horned dinosaurs such as Triceratops and Torosaurus. So it's nice that they've considered its lifestyle and put these slightly larger, more ornamental scales in there as well. Absolutely fabulous stuff. There are very few seams on this figure, apart from the aforementioned one around the back of the head there, which is inevitable. It really doesn't detract from the figure at all. There is a couple of tiny little ones around the arms, but they're blended in so well with the scales you can barely see them. Beautiful wrinkling and folding textures going on here. Lovely, thick, bulky chest and hips, thickening at the base of the tail and coming down the tail here. Magnificent stuff. And that beautiful, beautiful pose. Slightly bird-like or crocodile-like, because crocodiles also have scoots down the hands and feet, on the feet here. And they've gone for slightly more rugose textures on the underside. Of course, if T-Rex was lying down, it would maybe have more calloused skin there. And of course around the cloacal vent, which of course is beautifully sculpted there, very crocodilian and correct. Yes, we do know a little bit more about dinosaur bottoms now on account of a fantastic specimen of Psittacosaurus that was discovered quite recently. So overall, this Tyrannosaurus Rex figure, I mean, it's one of my favourite dinosaur figures of all time. I can't see that changing anytime soon, if I'm honest. I haven't seen anything else which has looked quite as impressive as this. I know that PNSO have been taking some advice from people who really know what they're talking about recently. So it really shows when you've got figures like this and they're of this quality and of this standard. Yes, the paint scheme is a little plain, but it's believable and it's realistic. It's certainly not something to pick out. And, you know, it's so beautifully applied. It really doesn't detract from the figure at all. Compared to some other Tyrannosaurus figures, I mean, I've got one which is quite jazzy here. This is collector's small and sadly retired feathered hunting T-Rex, the female. As you can see, the bright colours on this one. I know some people like the bright colours on the dinosaurs, but collectors are always a little bit too over the top for my liking. But this is a stunning little figure. I just compare it to this little 100 scale Kyoto T-Rex. This is possibly my next favourite Tyrannosaurus Rex figure of all time. Again, another stunning little figure. It shares a lot of similarities with Wilson here. Of course, Wilson's greatly updated. It wouldn't be a T-Rex review video without you showing it next to Safari's magnificent 1/35 scale feathered Tyrannosaurus Rex. Now this one is a heavier figure, and it's definitely slightly bulkier as well. This one is, after all, based on Sue, which is a much heavier specimen than Stan, which I'm assuming is what this one is. It certainly looks like Stan. And finally, my old Batat T-Rex, who I've had for about 25 years. Now this figure really set the standard for a very long time because it came out not long after the Jurassic Park franchise, and yet it looked totally different. And they had the jugal horn then, and also the horn in the keratinous structures along the top of the head here. And it's still an outstanding figure. Yes, the proportions and the bulk and everything are a little bit low, but Batat really set the standard with this figure, and it's not really been until this one has come along from PNSO that has been bettered. So overall, I would say as a collector, yes, this is a slightly more expensive figure, but it is so worth it. Everything about this figure screams quality, the articulation of the jaw, the sculpt, everything. Absolutely magnificent stuff from PNSO. I'm greatly looking forward to the Rallosaurus and the Pachycephalosaurus and various other figures which are now coming out. This is Carcharodontosaurus. There's also a Chronosaurus which has just been revealed. Fantastic stuff. Of course, these will all be coming into Everything Dinosaur. I hope you've enjoyed having a quick look at Wilson with me, and I shall see you in the next video.